Hello, Osaka. This is a presentation by Maithili Hajarika and Dr. Shriparna Das of the University of Hyderabad, India, on how Bihu songs of Assam, a state that lies in the northeastern corner of India, performs emotional unity amongst its various communities living in the state and in the face of its subnationalist politics and violence. The paper is titled Resolving Conflict Through Emotional Unity, Bihu Songs as a Cohesive Force of Assamese Subnationalism. So we start. Assam is a state that lies in the northeast of India and forms one of the seven states which together are called the seven sister states of the northeast. The state traces a long history of militancy, military rule by the Indian government, and their ensuing violence. Assam is made up of a composite society of people. There are the Aryans coming from the Indo-Gangetic plains, the Tibeto-Burmans, the Ahoms, who were descendants of the Shan community from China's Hunan province and had ruled the greater part of the land for 600 years. Besides many other stocks which make a compound Assamese culture. An Assamese is therefore understood not as a tribe or as a sub-tribe, but an inhabitant of Assam who traces a historical and socio-cultural affinity with the state. Colonial rule in the region and its politics of segregation have had a long-term effect on the relationship between the hills people and its plains people. The segregation eventually led to a communication divide and hence a change of relationships between people. Colonial rule provided an impetus, however, to the coming of a large number of inhabitants from West Bengal to Assam in search of administrative and clerical jobs. Bengali, the language native to the region of Bengal, which includes Bangladesh, was effectually made the official language of Assam for a short period of time, starting in 1836. But one of the major changes enforced by colonial rule is the inclusion of the East Bengali district of Sylhet to Assam on September 12, 1874. Sylhet was historically unconnected to Assam and now forms a part of Bangladesh. This led to a massive immigration from East Bengal and changes, therefore, in Assam's demography. Most importantly, it led to a threat to Assam's linguistic and cultural identity. Over a period of time, therefore, questions about who were the Assamese were debated upon amongst the newly emerging Assamese intelligentsia. As a solution, they propagated the theory of one nation, an Assamese society which is made up of diverse communities speaking or related to the Assamese language and tracing its historical and socio-cultural affinity to the land. But there were problems in this one nation theory. The theory made an attempt to exclude those who did not speak the language. It did not foresee the problematic of taking such a stance in a society made up of compound communities. That even though Assamese is a language that is understood by all, yet its literary, cultural, and political hegemony over other languages might wound tribal sentiments was not pondered upon. As the demand and hegemony for Assamese language and culture continued after Indian independence, the hill tribes of the state who did not speak the language therefore showed separatist tendencies. Nagaland, Mizoram, and Meghalaya, which were earlier regions that included the state of Assam, formed independent states in due course of time. Assam's boundaries have been redrawn henceforth a number of times. Added to this problematic was also the state and in fact the entire Northeast suffering from asymmetrical distribution of economic and political privileges by the Indian Federation. Rising phenomena of nationalism, or rather modern nationalisms, gave birth to further separatist tendencies affecting changes in communal relationships within the state. The creation of the three states, therefore, also meant a slow yet persistent rise of various other narratives of identity, assertion, and autonomy by different communities. What Bihu does now in this scenario of conflict and violence, the songs here which are the folk songs of Assam, try and perform emotional bonding amongst the various communities who has a shared memory of history and identity to the land. The one nation theory propagated by the 19th and 20th century nationalism took shape of an Assamese culture and cultural hegemony. In the ensuing problematic of such, there existed the narrative of a state within the Indian polity and the parallel narratives of tribal autonomous identities. What it meant is a reassertion of tribal identities and a refusal to merge with the dominant Assamese population. The question of whose home shall the state represent arose and became the axis on which identity politics played around. What the songs here do is essentially a breakdown of the mental borders. Bihu denotes a set of three cultural festivals of Assam, which correspond to the three agricultural cycles of the state. The Assamese, being primarily an agricultural community, Bihu is considered the national festival of the state. There is the Gati Bihu, observed during October and where prayers are held for a good harvest. Then there is the Magh Bihu in January, which is celebrated to mark the end of harvest season, followed by Rongali or Bohag Bihu, which commemorates the new year and the crop planting season. Bohag is the season that starts in the middle of April and ushers in the Assamese New Year, the vibrant spring too. Now, surprisingly, therefore, the Bihu that takes place in this month is also known as Rongali Bihu, Rongali literally meaning colorful. It is in the Rongali or Bohag Bihu that we encounter the Bihu songs. What the songs are essentially assertions of the fertile landscape in the springtime, usually embedded in romantic outpourings of love. They are about the ecology and the setting, giving birth to various cultural paradigms. Prior to the birth of 19th century Assamese regional nationalism, the songs were however seen as vulgar peasant renditions by the newly emerging Assamese quote-unquote modern rationalist. The tides changed therefore with the birth of Assamese subnationalism, the rise of which, as explained earlier, was mostly due to the threat to Assamese linguistic and cultural colonialism by neighboring state of West Bengal and its adjacent East Bengal. Bihu therefore became a cultural symbol of the state. It is one festival that all communities could easily relate to. In this context, the songs slowly started becoming tools, therefore, of cultural activism. The Bihu songs as cultural symbols constructed a home for all. With their relationship to the land, the songs divulged the borders created by modern nationalisms. Being closely related to the land and its ecology, the songs draw a line of connection, one that underscores people's relationship to their land, irrespective of their ethnic differences. We'll now give you an example of how it does that. Bipin Saudang, a lyricist and composer of the state, has composed a Bihu song that strikes on the frailty of strict identity constructs. The song is a love duet in which a boy and a girl try and understand each other's identity and finds it in the compositeness the Bihu creates. As the boy sings, "Are you a Nagini from a Naga song? Are you a Meghali from Jorabad? Are you a Khamti from Arunachal? You are but a dancer in Bohag Bihu." The girl retorts, "Are you a Kosari or a Sutia? Are you a Deuri or a Khasiya? You toil hard, you plough the fields. You are the Dhulia at the celebration of Bihu." So, what the song does here is a powerful deconstruction of strict racial, linguistic, and cultural boundaries and how it does it. The references to Nagini, Meghali, and Khamti are being made to a girl from Nagaland, Meghalaya, and Arunachal Pradesh, respectively. What a boy does is to understand who is she by trying to place her identity in various ethnic constructs. But it is as a dancer and as a singer in Bihu's spirit that he identifies her. Similarly, the girl addresses him as a Kosari, which is a generic term applied to refer to a Tibeto-Burman ethnic group, and other ethnic groups such as a Sutia and as a Deuri, or even as a Khasiya, who belongs to an indigenous tribal group living mostly in the neighboring state of Meghalaya. She again understands his ethnicity as a ploughman of the land and as a Dhulia, someone who plays a traditional drum called a dhul during Bihu dance. Here, Jorabad and Arunachal are the names of two places neighboring Assam. Jorabad is a village in Meghalaya, with its greater part in the Kamrup metropolitan district of Assam. And Arunachal is a reference to Arunachal Pradesh, Assam's erstwhile neighbor. Okay. One of the most influential and popular singers of Assam is Bhupen Hazarika, who has perhaps drawn the single most evocative history of the post colonial Assam through his songs. His songs have evoked an emotional shockwave across the state. The ordinary and the everyday in his narratives take on a center stage, making a call for a heterogeneous population who could relate to this. What they do, therefore, is to make a tacit condemnation of provincial parochialism. Hajarika sings, the floods have come, O Makon, have washed away everything, O Makon. I take a pledge, O Makon, I shall build an embankment, O Makon, I shall consolidate the society, O Makon. The floods here therefore speak not only about the environmental maladies but also the larger picture of societal tribulations. The lines gain significance in the overwhelming parallelities of conflict and disaster. He takes a pledge not only for himself but for the entire population for whom he speaks. But when you move across in the 1980s, what we see is a flip side of what happened in Assamese subnationalism. Uh, with the Assamese subnationalism and the language debates, they and the hegemony of Assamese culture over other tribal languages, the entire phenomena took on a radical turn in the 1980s with the rise of the United Liberation Front of Assam, or ALPHA as it is better known as. Supported by the mass and the state government in its inception, there emerged Bihu songs that narrativized the sorry state of Assam and the need to take up arms, therefore, to protect their homeland. Bhupen Hazarika's use of the mother motif rested here on the creation of a collectivity, of being born, as critic Sanjeev Barua says, from a common womb. In this, he brings together the heterogeneity that makes up the state. In a song, therefore, he sings, Bohag is just not a season, it is the lifeline of the Assamese community. Clearly, what he does here is to construct a line of connectivity within the space of Bohag or Bohag Bihu. So, what we see here is that the Bihu songs create a home that lies beyond the ethnic differences and creates a space wherein such a play could be embodied. It creates a home which rests on a necessary emotional connection with the land from which the songs emerge and about which they sing. The home that Bihu creates, therefore, shows the inability to dislodge regions and neighbors based on cultural differences, because the cultures are inevitably constructed with their interaction with another's cultural ethos. In the present context, Bihu has surfaced in the national forum with various remakings. One of the notable ones in the recent times are the fusion renditions of the MTV produced Coke Studio. Tastefully done, the songs amalgamate with other folk patterns, which give us hints about how music and songs can communicate to each other and function in a typical way of evoking borderlessness. We conclude our presentation uh, with this thought and with the assertion that Bihu songs of the state of Assam in India's northeastern corner perform an emotional cohesion in the context of the state's ongoing crisis of militancy and ethnic violence. Caught in the middle of a battle of bitter identity politics, the songs create a liminal space wherein it contextualizes the physical setting with the cultural paradigms and thus makes for an evocative understanding of the futility of violence. The songs draw an emotional line of connection, therefore, between people's cultural aspirations and their relationship with the land. Thank you.